Donald Trump said nothing as GM workers were on strike, as the company closed plants in Warren, Michigan, in Lordstown, Ohio. In fact, he blasted our union while promising Lordstown workers they'd get their jobs back.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
The UAW has, over the last few months, engaged in a really impressive political education campaign. They have, as I mentioned in Last Week in Southern Labor, made an attempt to contact every single UAW member across the country, which is huge. That's a lot of people. And they have been able to move their membership in a pretty significant way towards voting for Kamala Harris, which is, the union has endorsed Kamala Harris. And so it's their ability to make good on that endorsement and push their members towards the union's position, I think is going to be really important in making the case for the Kamala Harris administration, should she be elected next week, to continue on and expand on and build on what the Biden administration has done in terms of supporting unions. Because I think there are, in my opinion, there are a lot of worrying signs from the Kamala Harris campaign vis-a-vis her support for unions and her commitment to maintaining the kind of break with the neoliberal era, or at least the beginning of a break with the neoliberal era that the Biden administration represented. I think that there's, to a certain extent, I've heard that her administration is going to be a jump ball, and it's kind of to be determined. Is she going to be a Biden 2.0 or an Obama 2.0? And the latter is obviously significantly worse. I think the Biden administration was significantly better for working people than the Obama administration. And so there's a lot of worrying signs I have seen from the campaign about her commitment to maintaining the Biden administration's stance to supporting unions. And so these kinds of, I think that the political education campaigns and the get out the vote efforts that the UAW in particular, but other unions as well, have done are going to be really important in kind of making the case to the Harris administration, should that become a reality, to maintain the positive relationship with unions that the Biden administration has. And so a lot of people have been giving their closing arguments around the election. Both, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have been giving their closing arguments. Shawn Fain did something of a closing argument last week as well. And he started in the same way that I started when we just interviewed the Ironworkers International Union's General Secretary. The question that I started with was, why should unions engage in the political process at all? Why not, shut up and dribble, so to speak, as many want unions to do? Why don't you do that? And Shawn Fain, international president of the United Auto Workers, spent a pretty good amount of time explaining why he doesn't think that's the right move, why he thinks that unions should engage politically and should make endorsements for their preferred candidates. So let's listen to him from last week.
Why do we have to engage in politics? Why can't we just stay out of it? Why can't we just stick to contracts? And the answer is because we are up against a billionaire class that will not stop their attack on us at the bargaining table. They will not stop at the workplace. They will not stop at the border. They will take every inch we give them. That's why our greatest UAW president, Walter Reuther, famously said, there's a direct relationship between the ballot box and the bread box. And what the union fights for and wins at the bargaining table can be taken away in the legislative halls. And that's why the founders of our union laid out in great detail our responsibility as a union to engage in the political process. Tonight, I want to begin with what's written in our UAW Constitution. And I quote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, expressive of the ideals and hopes of the workers who come under the jurisdiction of this international union, United Automobile, Aerospace, and Agricultural Implement Workers of America. That all people are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among people, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed." It goes on to say, "It is essential, therefore, that the concerns of workers and of society be taken into account when basic managerial decisions are made. The structure of work established by management is designed to make of the workers an adjunct to the tool rather than its master. This, coupled with the authoritarian climate of the workplace, robs the worker of their dignity as an adult human being. This belies the democratic heritage we cherish as citizens in a society rooted in democratic values. Essential to the UAW's purpose is to afford the opportunity for workers to master their work environment, to achieve not only improvement in their economic status, but of equal importance, to gain from their labors a great measure of dignity, of self-fulfillment, and self-worth." Now pay attention to this part of the Constitution. "Workers must also participate meaningfully in political and legislative action because government impacts importantly on their lives and on their communities. If government is to be the means by which people achieve a humanitarian and equitable society, it must be a responsible and accountable government. Therefore, the UAW has a duty and responsibility to promote real and meaningful participatory democracy through its members and their families so that free people and their institutions may be heard in the councils of government and so that office holders are guided by principle alone. The UAW must play an active role at all levels of government to protect the lives and rights of its members and their families. We must work constantly on the political and legislative problems facing the whole society." And that's the end of that quote. So we don't engage in political activity because we like a candidate. We don't do it for ourselves as your union leadership. We don't do it for the Democratic or Republican parties. We engage in politics as a union because it is core to our fight for economic and social justice.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
So that's that's the reason that so many unions do not just kind of stand on the sidelines and not endorse during political races. And I think that's a very compelling case. And another reason, in this election in particular, is the threat that unions perceive from a second Trump administration. Let's take a listen to this clip from Shawn Fain about what CEO's reaction will be if Trump gets reelected.
This election is where a huge amount of power is going to be decided. And for our UAW Constitution, for our union, for our families, and for our communities, we can't sit this one out. What we decide as a nation and as a nation will have impacts for years to come. Every organizing campaign, every contract, every grievance settlement will be impacted by this election. If the billionaires take back our presidency through their lapdog Donald Trump, you can be damn sure that every single CEO in this country will smell blood in the water. The future of the American worker will not be solved in one contract. It will not be solved by organizing alone. to keep good jobs in America, we need to engage in the political action.
And so he begins, and so that's where he starts kind of doing a similar thing to what the Ironworkers General Secretary did earlier in the program, laying out the relevant facts as their union sees it for UAW members. And again, you know, a lot of it is pretty compelling stuff from Shawn Fain of the UAW. Let's listen to the facts that the UAW feels are relevant for union members generally, workers generally, but specifically for UAW members.
So here are the facts in this election. On one side, you have Donald Trump, a billionaire with a proven track record of serving himself. And on the other side, you have Kamala Harris, who walked our picket line in 2019, who has voted with us in Congress time and again, who voted against Donald Trump's failed NAFTA 2.0, who stands with us. But don't take my word for it. Here's Donald Trump in his own words and actions over many years. In 2008, when our industry was in crisis, Donald Trump blamed the American auto worker for the Big Three's failures. He said, the unions are hurting very badly what's going on with the auto industry, while we sacrifice for these companies. On the other side, the Democrats in 2008 helped save the auto industry, and they bet on the American auto worker. In 2015, when Trump was running for president, he talked about doing a rotation. He said he wanted to move auto jobs out of Michigan and the Midwest to push auto workers' wages down. And when he was president, Trump successfully did move auto jobs out of Michigan and the Midwest and the U.S. entirely when he passed his NAFTA 2.0 trade deal, which has increased the number of auto and auto parts jobs that left this country as companies head overseas to exploit poor workers in Mexico and beyond. On the other side, you have Kamala Harris and the track record of the Biden-Harris administration. Kamala Harris voted against Trump's NAFTA and was one of just 10 senators to do so. Trump's NAFTA 2.0 is up for renegotiation in 2026. Kamala Harris has publicly committed that as president, she will fight to fix Trump's failed NAFTA to protect American workers in our communities. And let's talk about auto jobs in this country, because these two candidates have a proven track record in that respect. Under the Biden-Harris administration, we have seen a boom in U.S. manufacturing, thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Act and other legislation. When Donald Trump was president, manufacturing was declining, even before COVID hit. He said he was going to bring the jobs back. But Kamala Harris's administration is actually doing it. Look at Lordstown, Ohio. Trump left those workers behind at General Motors' Lordstown assembly plant. He said, don't sell your house, and he did nothing. The Biden-Harris administration actually invested in a battery plant in Lordstown. And now those workers are making EV batteries under our national agreement. They were able to return home, making good union wages. People are afraid, that electric vehicles are going to kill jobs. But we're seeing more investment now than we've seen at any point in my lifetime. Auto and auto parts jobs are at their highest level in nearly 20 years. We have to fight for those jobs to be good jobs. And we need someone who will stand with us in that fight. So how about when the chips are down and our members are on the picket line? Last year during our strike, Donald Trump held a fake rally at a non-union auto shop and blamed our union while we were in a fight for our lives. Rather than speaking out against corporate greed at the Big Three, he attacked us. He's called for members to abandon our union and stop paying dues. He blames the union for the company's problems. On the other side, President Biden became the first sitting president in U.S. history to walk a picket line, our picket line. Biden said on live national TV that record profits should mean record contracts and that we had sacrificed enough as auto workers. He had our back, and so did Kamala Harris. Back in 2019, when it wasn't a popular thing to do, when GM auto workers were on strike and Trump was president, Kamala Harris was standing on the picket line shoulder to shoulder with striking workers at GM. How about Donald Trump? When he was president in 2019, again, he said nothing as GM workers were on strike. He did nothing as the company closed plants in Warren, Michigan, in Lordstown, Ohio, in Baltimore, Maryland. In fact, he blasted our union while promising Lordstown workers they'd get their jobs back. And just last month, in a live interview with Elon Musk, Trump praised Musk for being the greatest cutter. He openly laughed about firing workers on strike, and he said, I quote, "Every one of you is gone." Kamala Harris and Joe Biden stood with us on the picket line. Governor Tim Walz stood with us on the picket line. They stood with us in our fight to reopen Belvedere. They stood with us in our fight to bring jobs back to Lordstown, Ohio. So to me, in their own words and actions, it's really simple. Donald Trump is against us. He's against our union. He's against the working class. And he's against everything we stand for. Kamala Harris is with us. In her words, in her actions, she has shown us that she's on our side. And who we elect matters, because we have some major fights ahead of us.
So there you go. That is the case that the UAW is making to its members ahead of the election on Tuesday. And, if you gotta have to engage with kind of what was said, right? If you are going to be, if you disagree with the conclusion, or you think that other things are more important and things like that, then, that's fine. And it's okay to have that perspective. But the things that he was talking about there really are important. And since this is going to be our last show before the election, we wanted to make sure that we spent, a decent amount of time on it, right? Because we do not spend a lot of time talking about politics on this channel. We don't spend a lot of time talking about elections. And so wanted to make sure that we kind of did a roundup of, some of the unions and what they're saying about the election. And like I said earlier, the UAW's had a really robust political education campaign ahead of this election. And so we will see what the results are on Tuesday. And one way or another, there's going to be huge ramifications from the results of the election for union members and the working class generally in this country and across the world. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.